one. Let's go.
Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Andy Hodges, Head of Business at Zim Papers TV Network, ZTN, and I have the pleasure of being your moderator for tonight's webinar. Live from Harare, Zimbabwe, welcome to our virtual webinar, Career Path for ICT Professionals Webinar 2021. This webinar is brought to you by the Zimbabwe Network Operators Group, ZimNOG, in partnership with the Internet Society Zimbabwe Chapter, ISOC. This evening, we have a host of distinguished guests who will give us their personal views on our topic, Career Path for ICT Professionals Webinar 2021. Now, please note that all the views expressed tonight during our webinar are our speakers' personal observations and not views of any of their affiliated organizations or employers. Many people dive into career paths that may lead to future regrets, or because they lacked proper guidance and information earlier in life. Information Communications Technology, ICT, covers a whole range of career paths that diverge into fascinating and lucrative specializations in the digital world. Our webinar tonight aims to give an awareness of the various pathways that can be followed within the ICT sector. We have invited some experts to share an insight of how they have maneuvered to get to where they are. So before I continue, may I ask that everybody mutes their microphones, please, because we can hear someone speaking. So please mute your microphones, but when I come to you, you can obviously unmute. Now, we have tonight invited some industry experts to share an insight on how they maneuver to get to where they are right now. The event is targeted tonight at ICT professionals, university and college students, lecturers and business leaders interested in exploring the diverse options available. Of course, tonight's event, as I said, is brought to you by ZimNOG in partnership with ISOC Zimbabwe. We'd like to make tonight's webinar as interactive as possible. So please post any questions, comments, or views on the chat platform, and we will endeavor to ask your questions directly to tonight's speakers. Alternatively, during the Q&A session later in the webinar, please raise your hand and I will, time permitting, come to you. Tonight, you'll also may be able to win a prize. We'll be posting a link in the comment section. In fact, I believe it's already posted. Click on it, fill in the form and answer the questions, and a prize may be yours. We will, at the end of tonight's webinar, announce a winner or the winners. Now, before we ask tonight's guests to introduce themselves, I'd like to call upon Nomsa Mwanyenga from ZimNOG to give us some opening remarks. Nomsa, welcome to the webinar tonight. Please proceed.
Thank you, Andy. Good evening, everyone. So excited to be here. It's been a pleasure planning, and I got the privilege of working with our chairperson and president, Fanufikile. And so welcome to everyone. I hope that this event is going to be beneficial to all of you. So just as a disclaimer, I work for former Facebook, which is Meta now. I'm a partner engineer in the organization, but I am here representing ZimNOG, and the views that I will have, or any contributions I will have in this event, are of my own, or a representative of ZimNOG. So before we go ahead, I'd like to acknowledge everyone who's been helping out with this event. It has taken us quite a while for us to get here, but this has been necessitated by the need for people to pave a way into the ICT, different ICT careers. And so thank you once again to the ZimNOG team, to ISOC, and to ISOC Zimbabwe chapter, and a special thanks to Andy for availing yourselves. So yeah, I'm going to give the mic back to you, Andy, to proceed with introductions. And just before we do that, I was almost forgetting to give a brief introduction of ZimNOG. So ZimNOG is a not-for-profit organization. I am part of the founding members, and the reason behind ZimNOG was to give some direction, a platform in some direction on different ICT issues, areas, to give a platform for people to share ideas and to network. So we are not limited to network engineering. It's an open platform, although when we started, it was mostly focused on getting network engineers or people that work in ICT, primarily in internet-related technologies, to come together and share ideas and build up skills. So yeah, I'm gonna give it back to you, Andy, to continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nomsa Mwanyenga from ZimNOG. She said she's one of the founding members there. Thank you so much for your opening remarks, and welcome again to everybody who's joining us tonight in what I think is a very critical and important webinar, because you need to know where you're going and how to get there. I would now like to call upon and give each of our speakers and guests tonight just a minute or so to introduce themselves and take us through their career journeys up to now. Now, I say briefly because unfortunately, Harare has been experiencing power cuts today in central business districts, so we may have to shorten the time of our webinar. So I'd like to get through it, try to get through the whole program if possible. So it's a great honor that we welcome this evening our first guest, Engineer Tawedzewa Chagwesha, business owner at Shibishanu Technology Zimbabwe. Now, Shibishanu Technologies specialize in software engineering, software development, systems design, architecture, and highly scalable and distributed systems. Now, Engineer Chagwesha himself holds a BEng Electronic Engineering from NUST Zimbabwe, certificate in project management, ZIPAM. He is a corporate member of the Zimbabwe Institution of Engineers and a professional engineering council of Zimbabwe. Engineer Chagwesha, welcome to our webinar this evening. Please proceed with your brief opening remarks.
Thank you, Andy, for having me. Just a brief history on me. I did my degree in electronic engineering, and my first job was actually as a software developer or a software programmer. I rose quickly through the ranks, worked for 5 years, same company, then left to start my own business. So we are now 5 years in, we're celebrating our 5th anniversary as a Shirishanu and as a business person. So I hope to provide some insight concerning entrepreneurship within Zimbabwe in the ICT field. Thank you very much. Back to you, Andy.
Thank you, Engineer Chagwesha. I'm sure I will get to you later about how to rise in the ranks and how people should look forward in their career path. So thank you for that. Our next guest tonight, it gives me pleasure to welcome Professor Prince Hamandawana. Now, Professor Hamandawana has a total of 13 years experience. He is a big data and machine learning researcher from Soonsil University in Seoul, South Korea, a distributed system researcher that's AI and ML platforms at Aju University, Korea, and he's worked, I believe, at Liquid Telecom Zimbabwe and Econet Wireless Zimbabwe. He also holds a PhD in Artificial Intelligence from Aju University, Korea, and a BSc Computer Science from NUST Zimbabwe. Professor Hamandawana, welcome to our webinar tonight. I see you've had some interesting things. I think AI seems to be the future, which I will ask you about later, but please proceed with your remarks.
Okay, thank you, Andy, for giving me this time. So I will briefly introduce myself, my career path. So basically, I'm a computer scientist. I started my journey as a student at NUST, where I did my computer science honors degree. That was my BSc in computer science from 2006 to 2010. Then I went on to work at Econet Wireless and Liquid Telecoms as a network engineer, where I worked with some of my compatriots here like Nomsa and Fanufikile. Then actually I saw that was not my path, working in the industry. So I pursued further my education to go towards the academic field of the ICT industry. So I came to Korea and did my PhD, where before that I secured a scholarship through my university. So I did a scholarship in artificial intelligence. Then I further on, after I finished my PhD, I first did my postdoctoral research fellow at a university in Seoul. Then I secured my job as a professor at Soonsil University, where I'm working now. So my main area of research is mostly in the research and development field, in the field of building software platforms for big data and machine learning platforms. So that is it in summary. I will hand over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Professor Amandawana. Thank you so much for that. And welcome to you all the way from Seoul, South Korea. It's such a pleasure to have you here. You are participating in our virtual webinar tonight. This topic, of course, Career Path for ICT Professionals Webinar 2021. This webinar is brought to you by the Zimbabwe Network Operators Group, ZimNOG, in partnership with the Internet Society Zimbabwe chapter. Now, again, please note that all the views expressed tonight during our webinar are our speakers' personal observations and not views of any of their affiliated organizations or employers. Now, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our next guest on this evening's webinar, Obey Mabaso. Now, Obey has a total of 8 years experience in ICT and has been involved with such companies as Econet Wireless Zimbabwe, which of course is a mobile network operator, and Capgemini IT consultancy in Sweden. Obey holds an MSc Information Systems from Lund University in Sweden, a Bachelor of Engineering in Electronics from NUST Zimbabwe, and a postgraduate diploma in Project Management from PMZ Zimbabwe. Obey Mabaso, welcome to our webinar. Please go ahead.
Thank
Obey,
you.
please. Obey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Please go ahead, sir.
All right. Thank you, Andy, for having me. Like you said, like Andy said, I started my career at Econet Wireless as an engineer just after graduating from NUST. I see some classmates here. So in Econet, I spent almost 7 years, and I had the chance to work with different technologies, including mobile network and business intelligence technologies. After 7 years, I left Econet to pursue my master's degree in information systems in Sweden. And right after graduating, I joined Capgemini, where I'm currently working as a cloud consultant. So basically, that's myself and my career path so far.
Obey Mabaso, thank you very much indeed for that introduction of who you are and what you're currently doing. Now, of course, as I said at the beginning, please keep your questions, comments, or views coming through via our chat platform, and we will endeavor to ask your questions directly to tonight's speakers. Alternatively, during our Q&A session toward the end of our webinar, please raise your hand and I will, time permitting, come to you to ask your question directly to our guests. Now, please let me just reiterate, if you're not talking, please could you turn off your microphones, because we can hear a few microphones on. So I please ask you just to turn off or mute your microphones so that we don't get any chatter that distracts us during our webinar. Again, please note that all the views expressed tonight during our webinar are speakers' personal observations, not views of any of their affiliated organizations or employers. Our next guest tonight is Paul Mazda. Now, Paul has vast experience in the 23rd Century Systems Zimbabwe for 5 years, and a SAP business intelligence consultant across Africa, a mobile network operator for 4 years, and a senior data analytics professional here in Zimbabwe. Paul holds a BSc Honors Information Systems from Midland State University. He's currently pursuing an MSc Data Science and Informatics at the University of Zimbabwe. He's a member of the Institute of Technology Professionals South Africa, ITPSA, and a member of the Project Management Institute, PMI. Paul, welcome. I read out all of your qualifications there. I should say congratulations. But welcome to the webinar tonight, and please proceed with your opening remarks and introduction.
And you cannot change it. And what makes this group really powerful is this particular policy here.
Now, Tutukila has 8 years ICT experience and is a strategy, architecture, and planning professional in a mobile network operator based here in Zimbabwe. She holds an MSc Information Systems and a BSc Computer Science, both from NUST Zimbabwe, and a Prince 2 qualification, and is currently doing TOGA F. Of course, I'm not an ICT guy, but I'm sure most of you know what TOGA F is. Tutukila, welcome to our webinar tonight. Please proceed with your introductory remarks.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. Thank you to ZimNOG for having me. My qualifications have already been outlined. I would like to say I'm a computer scientist by training and an engineer by profession. And I also am very much interested in mentoring and in also teaching and helping out and guiding our students in helping them in the path of ICT. So I'm glad that the audience that we have has students and people that want to venture into the ICT industry. So thank you very much. I look forward to the discussion today.
Tequila, thank you so much indeed for your introduction. Our final guest tonight, who is with us here on the webinar, is Engineer Wingai Admire Nyagura. Now, Engineer Nyagura has 12 years telecommunications experience, ISP business, SA, and working for 3 internet access providers in Zimbabwe. Engineer Nyagura holds a BA Engineering Electronic Engineering from NUS Zimbabwe, a Master of Business Administration from Solusi Zimbabwe. He's a corporate member of Zimbabwe Institution of Engineers and a professional engineer, Engineering Council of Zimbabwe. Admire, Engineer Nyagura, welcome to the webinar. Please proceed with your introduction.
Yes, good evening, Andy. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Welcome, welcome. It's good to have you here.
I don't know if it's a coincidence, but most of the panels there are from NUST, and I'm also from NUST. Yeah, I'm an electronic engineer by qualification, but I'm a practicing telecommunication engineer. I've got basically more than a decade of experience in network planning, basically planning telecommunication networks. I've worked for various companies in Zimbabwe and South Africa. I've worked for IBM, Cybertech, Liquid Telecom, Security, and Power Telecommunications. Yes, thank you. That's basically me.
Thank you, Engineer Nyagura. Thank you so much for those opening remarks. You're participating in our virtual webinar tonight, Career Path for ICT Professionals Webinar 2021. This webinar is brought to you by the Zimbabwe Network Operators Group, ZimNOG, in partnership with the Internet Society Zimbabwe Chapter, ISOC. Now comes the time we would like to ask questions directly to our guests covering various aspects of ICT career paths, starting with education, which appears to be a foundation for any career in ICT. Remember, at the end of this session, we will have an open question and answer session. So make sure you keep your questions and comments coming through via our chat comments platform. Alternatively, during our Q&A session, please raise your hand and I will, as I said, time permitting, come to you. Please note again that all the views expressed tonight during our webinar are speakers' personal observations and not views of any of their affiliated organizations or employers. Also, please don't forget to participate in our quiz because you may be able to win a prize tonight. We have posted the link in the comment section. Just click on it. I think there's a brief questionnaire to fill in and some questions to fill in. And hopefully tonight at the end of our webinar, we'll announce the winner or winners. I'm not sure how many there are, but we will announce them at the end of our session. So please, please stay with us, don't go away. Now, then, as I said, I want to pose some questions based on education to some of our guests. Admire, I want to start with you. You know, how would you say your first degree prepared you for industry? You know, it's interesting because this is the question. You go to college, you do all these BScs and engineering qualifications and even ICT related qualifications. Does that help you in terms of fitting in when you move into industry or move into a job after graduation? Admire?
Hi, Andy. Thank you very much. Basically, the first degree, it basically gives you a head start your career, because your degree is a prerequisite for the competitive workforce available for the same position that you'll be vying for. But what I've realized that the degree doesn't necessarily need to be aligned to the industry. Like take for instance my example. I've got a background in electronic engineering, but now I'm in telecommunications engineering. And most of the time, what I've also realized is most of the things that you learn there, it develops some very critical skills. There are critical skills that you learn, but in terms of experience, you won't be having much experience, and the college degree doesn't give you that. Probably the attachment period may actually give you a very good head start. You may probably need to be networked. Yeah. So you'd realize that probably more than 60% of graduates, they don't go into the careers directly related to their career paths. Yeah.
Maybe I should ask the same question to Tutukile. Tutukile, as you said, you work for various mobile operators and ICT firms. How did you manage to fit in well after graduation? How did your first degree prepare you for a career in industry?
Thank you very much. I would like to agree very much with Engineer Nyakura. I'm a computer scientist by training, but however, straight from college, I went straight into telecommunications as well. And it really did. Initially, when I was put in telecommunications, I did not even see how it fits into what I had done as a computer scientist. However, I noticed that by being to the computer science as well as the degree that I did, I was able to understand and I was able to fit in what I had learned so that I am able to fit in those qualifications into what I would have been doing at work. And remember, when you get into straight from college, going straight into work, you get to then have to be trained as well. So the learning that you would have done at university, you will then be able to implement it while you're also being trained. And that is what gives you the added advantage, where you are trained by people that are already doing the work, and then you also add in what you would have learned from college. So definitely, I think that my first degree prepared me partially for what I then ended up doing in industry. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the message there, of course, is study, because this is obviously one field whereby you really do need qualifications. It's one of those areas, I suppose, ICT, like lawyers and so forth, where you really do need to study, get that qualification, see what you want to specialize in, and and then obviously be prepared to join industry, or like some of our other guests, in fact, set up your own business as an entrepreneur. But Professor Amandawana, I want to come to you, because obviously you say that you're now doing an R&D. You're based, of course, in Seoul, South Korea. Now, ICT is an ever-changing field. There is no doubt that one needs to keep studying and researching to remain relevant, similar to, I suppose, what you're doing as you study new ICT solutions that are coming into the market almost daily sometimes. So in your opinion, do you think a master's is more important compared to certifications when one wants to further study?
Okay, thank you, Andy, for asking me that important and critical question. So I think from my opinion, this highly depends on the forecasted nature and direction of career road paths to success that will be chosen by each individual. So, for example, if one chooses to a career path that will lead towards a managerial position, then the masters will be a good idea to pursue. But I think if we take it from the other end, if someone is going towards a promotion, like to a more technical discipline or a specialization, then the certifications are worth it, because they will give him the more skill set to execute the job. But I will also go on to a broader category that is for someone who will choose to remain in the academic field, right? Because this is specifically only for the industry. So if someone chooses to proceed like to a PhD and remain specifically in the academics and research field, then they have to throw away the idea of certifications, and they will just have to focus on the research and development, and also on scientific publication of those research ideas.
Professor, thank you. Paul, I'd like to bring you in here. What are some of the cool certifications, if I can call them that you would recommend to remain a relevant professional, not just now, but also specifically thinking about the future? Because I believe the ICT platform, or the ICT forward thinking, can be very different to today's world. So what are the cool certifications that you would recommend to some of our guests tonight? Paul? Okay, well, I'm not sure Paul is with us, so I can't hear him. Oh, are you there with us, Paul? No? Okay, Obey, is Obey with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Obey, I'm not sure if you heard the question. Maybe you could take this question about the cool certifications. As I said, it's hard for me to say that, but I believe that that's the word to describe it, that you would recommend to remain a relevant professional, not just now, but going forward into the future.
Okay. Obviously, there are thousands of ICT certifications there, and this heavily depends on what the person intends to do. But of course, there are some trending technologies where there is a high demand of IT resources, ICT resources, and I tend to have a bias towards cloud computing because that's the field that I'm working in right now. There are major providers of cloud computing like Microsoft, and I'm sure any cloud certification in Microsoft should be good enough. Things like Azure and Power Platform. There's also other providers like AWS. They've a huge customer base, so having such certifications, you are sort of guaranteeing yourself that you will be a highly sought after resource out there. Going into telecoms, I came from telecoms and networking as well. There are some certifications like Cisco, CCNA up to CCIE. These are very important certifications in the industry. And yeah, when you really want to pursue a technical path in ICT, certifications are really important. So.
So, you know, so I suppose the answer there to all of you who are participating is, I suppose, what area do you want to go in? Because I think what's clear is, and what Paul said there, what was said there was obviously there are lots of different career paths in the ICT arena. And the question is, what do you want to do? So it's about combining your career path together with the type of educational qualifications that you require, how high you have to go, particularly if it's highly specialized, like I see a professor from Seoul is AI, which we all know about AI. I mean, I personally know about it from movies, but I'm sure it's the way of the future, so I am told. Our next area we would like to ask questions about relates to the professional aspects of an ICT career. Now, to Tukile, I'd like to come to you. We have seen that there are a lot of ICT qualifications that can lead to different roles in ICT. I think my previous guests, when answering questions, alluded to this. So, I mean, I suppose the question is what do ICT professionals actually do at the workplace?
That's a very, very broad question because ICT is broad in itself, right? So I would like to really talk about what I do, right? So I always tell anyone who asks me what I do, I'll be like, I'm paid to think, right? So I am literally the brains within the technical part of our organization, because I have to provide some support, some guidance, some expertise in anything that has to be put from idea all the way up to implementation. But that is not all that is done by ICT, right? We've got so many engineers in different fields. There are people who will be doing from analytics, from quality assurance, we have professionals in ICT who will be developers, and those are definitely very important. We have consultants, we have people in security, in analytics, and so on. So really there's broad things that we do in ICT. And the good part of it is all of those different sectors within ICT work together for the common good of IT and for the development of IT. So you'll notice from all the people within this panel, we do different things, but together we could come together and actually create something and do something together and work together and complement our skills together, such that we as ICT professionals will advance the field of ICT. So
right, thank you Tukile. Professor Hamadawana, how do you compare, because you're based in Seoul, so you know what it's like outside of Zimbabwe. How do you compare the ICT work environment in Zimbabwe to that abroad?
I think on that question, in terms of the Zim situation, we are still falling a way back down the ladder. So this in particular, when I will compare to developed countries like here in Korea, in terms of the digitization, for example, the digitization of public systems, we are still a long way to come through the ladder. So we need digitization of the public services to start with. Like, for example, we need ICT professionals being involved to make proposals in the development and upgrading of our systems. Like, for example, if we just take, for example, our registrar offices processes, they are still manual, and there's a lot of paperwork that needs to do. That is in the public sector. We need some proposal, and we need a group of ICT people, professionals who can make good proposal to make those digitization process a possibility. Then we can also go in terms of public schools, public transport systems, etc. There's a broad range of sectors that we are still lagging behind. So we see that in developed countries like here in Korea, because all these fundamentals, they are already in place. They've already started an ICT roadmap, which is being driven by recent technologies like 5G, like AI, like big data, and like Internet of Things, IoT. So we see that these new technologies, they actually, if they are meshed together, these new technologies have got a potential to stimulate like a launch of a new economic growth model. So that's where the developed nations are, which is quite a different story with the Zim situation now.
Thank you, Professor. Engineer Chagwesha, you set up your own business. If I'm not mistaken, it's called Shirushanu. So how is the ICT profession lucrative in Zimbabwe? What are salaries like compared to, say, other industries?
All right. Honestly speaking, I cannot vouch for other industries, but what I do know about the ICT field is it differs from organization to organization, particularly because there is no single governing body that regulates salaries. So that means wherever you are, the higher you're performing, the more you are likely to earn. Of course, there are outliers. There are situations where people are not earning much at all. But I would like to think, via my own experience, that the ICT field is quite lucrative in Zimbabwe. There are plenty of opportunities and very few service providers. Dare I say there is an actual shortage of ICT professionals in the country and ICT service providers. We are, as Professor Amanda was saying, Zimbabwe is a bit behind, as in some things which are foundational are not yet in place here in Zimbabwe. And that creates opportunities. It means there is more things to do. You can simply copy and paste an idea in a developed country and it will work out here. So I believe it's a very, very, very lucrative field as long as you are willing to put in the effort and be professional about your work.
Thank you very much indeed. Engineer Nyagura, interesting question, because it's about career progression in ICT, in the ICT area, in the ICT field. I mean, from your opinion and your observation, how easy it is to rise within the ranks? Because obviously, whenever anyone wants to get into a career path, they want to know that they have an upward trajectory when they do join that path. So from your perception, what's it like? Is it easy to rise within the ranks?
Thank you, Andy. Funny enough, what I've realized in this profession is it's actually far much easier for a young graduate to rise than it is for an old engineer to rise because of the ever-changing environment. The ICT industry is so much ever-changing. So you'd realize that things to do with like a lot of experience, like 10 years experience, 15 years experience, it's pretty much not necessary and it's irrelevant because of the change in needs of the environment. But basically, in terms of progression, like I've mentioned earlier, it's actually easier for younger graduates to actually do so. But what does it take for one to actually progress? One needs to do some self-assessment of themselves to see how much skills they have. They need to investigate the opportunities available, network themselves, research on trends, and probably develop a clear career search strategy to see how they can actually rise through the ranks.
That's interesting. That's the answers I've got. Yes, it's a lucrative profession. Yes, there's huge opportunities. And yes, work hard, do your research, understand where you want to go, follow your plan, do the work. I think that's the key. And you know what? The sky is the limit. I think this is the message I'm getting. Paul, I hope you are there. Paul, are you with us? Of course you are.
Yes, Andy. Apologies. My internet is terrible. We're having a serious downpour area. So,
no problem.
But I'll have to keep my video off though.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Paul, I just want to ask you a question because you know we have like what I would call a two-pronged issue about personal development. You've got obviously your formal qualifications, which you obviously need if you want to progress in an ICT field, because obviously it's very specialized. But are there any other skills, in your opinion, that are necessary for anyone to make it in the ICT arena?
Okay, thanks, Andy. I think in addition to the hard technical skills that that you need in IT, like your coding skills, like your math, right? There's a whole bunch of soft skills that are really necessary, which you don't necessarily acquire in formal education or training. Right, so that includes research, problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, people management, emotional intelligence, negotiation. So all these skills, they make you, a super performer in an ICT environment. So that adds to your, to your weight and your capability, and it's easier for you to rise when you have these, this set of social skills.
I also assume that people skills may come into that as well. I mean, we always see adverts of guys in ICT programs, ICT, where they are very people unfriendly. But in today's world, having those people skills or cultivating the networking is also critical, Paul.
Definitely. Okay, as you rise up the hierarchy in IT, I mean, especially when you're targeting the more senior roles like your chief technology officer, your chief analytics officer. The hard skills are important. The hard and technical skills are very critical, but the soft skills actually, make you stand out of the rest. So those skills are actually very, very important in that regard. So you need to cultivate them as a ICT professional.
Thank you, Paul. Tutukile, it's an interesting question because, and I hate to say this, but we have 6 guests tonight, and of course, 5 of them are men. So here's my question to you. Do you think that there is a gender balance in the ICT field? What would you say to encourage women interested in ICT to pursue it as a future career?
Well, definitely there is no balance in ICT, not only in this panel, but also in industry, in schools, really everywhere. And the thing is, what I notice is I think that we lack a lot, not just us, the women, but the combined effort between all women and men within the ICT field in trying to cultivate and trying to balance out this gender imbalance. But however, there are so many organizations that are really trying in cultivating interest in STEM. For example, women in engineering within the ZIE. We've got events like Girls in ICT, which is an international event that Zimbabwe also takes part in. Potras also does some events where they try and encourage women, and that what they're trying to do is to cultivate an interest. But I do have a challenge where I'll be trying to cultivate an interest in people that are already in this Zoom meeting, who to me are already interested in ICT. What we therefore need to do is to go to grassroots. By grassroots, I mean all the way down to preschool, primary school level, to people that are that are disadvantaged, so that we're able to share our success stories. You know, when we're now engineers and we're now in the field, it doesn't mean that we came from a point of privilege. We do have some stories that we have to share, and representation matters, especially in a field like this one. Someone who looks like me, who is like me, who comes from where I am, for example, China Primary School, where I went, they'll be more interested in pursuing this field if I go to them and I tell them that in the ICT field, there is this person, me, who is representing you. You can also do it. So we really do need a combined effort. But to anyone really who has an interest in ICT field, be it they're already in IT, studying IT, or they started something else and they are now doing a different career, but they have an interest in changing careers, I would like to say to them that the moment you're in ICT, there is no men and women. There is just a professional. You are either an engineer, you're either an analyst, you're a specialist, you're an architect. What we need from you is what you offer. What is it that you can offer within the organization? Just because you're a woman doesn't mean you will be lenient towards you. We expect productivity, right? And we expect that in the ICT field, you deliver. And it's not as hard as people make it seem. ICT is complicated, yes, but it's definitely not hard. Thank you.
That's an interesting observation there. You know, that as soon as you join the profession, you're not a man, you're not a woman. The trick is that your companies or your employers or even your own company, if you're an entrepreneur that you set up, they want to see results. They want to see you doing the right coding, setting up the AI, etc. You know, it doesn't matter what gender you are, but thank you for that. Now, please keep your questions coming soon. Now, as I said earlier, we are having power cuts here in Central Business District in Harare, Zimbabwe. So may I ask that you please mute your microphones? Oh, sorry. Can you please mute your microphones? Thank you. As I said, we are having power cuts here, so but please keep your questions coming through via our comment section, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to get to them before the power actually goes. If it does go, don't worry. I've been assured by both ZimNOG and ISOC that they will ask your guests our questions if, as I said, the power does go, and you will get responses to them directly from our guests or directly from the two organizations, ZimNOG and ISOC, who are partnering to bring you this webinar. You are participating in our virtual webinar tonight, Career Path for ICT Professionals Webinar 2021. This webinar is brought to you by the Zimbabwe Network Operators Group, ZimNOG, in partnership with the Internet Society Zimbabwe chapter. I now want to talk about technology overview. You know, there are so many technologies that are part of the fourth industrial revolution. So Professor Hamadawana, what are some of the new technologies or the technologies that you feel are worth noting? I mean, when I read out your profile, I talked there about AI, big data, ML platforms. I mean, what are some of the technologies that you feel that the people getting into ICT field today who are graduating or studying towards it should note?
Okay, thank you, Andy. I noted before, in the fourth industrial revolution, they are mostly being powered by the emergence of new technologies like 5G technology. It has played a major part because of the fastness of the speeds of the internet, and also big data is also a major driving area, because without data itself, then we cannot achieve meaningful business models or meaningful ideas that can come from AI models. So, for example, in these days, like here in Korea, most of the ICT roadmap have been centered within big data and AI. The reason why they are doing that is they are trying to make smart applications, and also they are trying to focus and center the development of new economic models using those smart based industry, and also using big data. They also try to develop models that are data centric, and from those data centric models, they can automate the process of learning new patterns and also forecasting new patterns in the if it becomes like in the area of the economy. They can also focus on future patterns before we even get there. So the use and power of AI can actually help economic leaders to make like future decisions before we even get into the future. So so if we merge these technologies together, we have that potential that stimulates a new economic model that we have never seen before. So I believe if we try to focus on big data, AI, and also if we try to focus our networks also to push towards 5G technology, then we'll find something that will be worth noting in improving our economic models.
Thank you, Professor. Engineer Nyagura, you know, I wanted to ask you the same question because you, in essence, are a telecoms planning engineer, which means obviously you have to keep your eye on the ball in terms of new technologies or exciting technologies that are coming up in the telecoms area, and I suppose in ICT in general. Have you had anything to add to my question about some of the technologies that you feel are worth noting? Admire?
Yes, hi, how are you? Thank you for that question.
Yeah.
Yes, if you can understand, that has been realized as you go to the fourth industrial revolution. It actually points towards the technologies that were being mentioned by the previous speaker, which is to do with AI, big data, Internet of Things. But in the field of telecoms, the main thing there would be probably Internet of Things and 5G, which would probably deliver far much better experience in terms of the internet services.
Thank you. I'd like to open this question up to one of my other guests, and please jump in if you feel free. But in your opinion, what do you see as the fastest growing ICT sector right now in the world? Maybe one of my guests can jump in. You know, I've heard from Professor Mandawana. I've heard from obviously Engineer Nyagura. So maybe Paul Obey or Tutukile, maybe one of you could jump in. What do you see as the fastest growing or the most relevant ICT area at the moment?
Oh, okay, I can take that one. So the thing, in my opinion, I think the cloud computing space has been growing for the past years at a steady rate. The reason being it's a platform that enables other technologies. We spoke of Internet of Things. You'll see that most of the Internet of Things IoT solutions are running on cloud platforms. We talk of artificial intelligence. Most of the solutions that are being developed right now, they are based on cloud platforms. Even if we talk of big data and big data analytics, they are based on cloud platforms. So my advice, if someone wants to enter the field of ICT, and they're trying to go in an area where they are sort of guaranteed that the demand will be high, at least in the next few years, I think cloud computing is one of those. But of course, 5G, I mean mobile telecoms, remains the enabler because all these technologies are highly dependent on connectivity. So mobile telecoms, 5G, 4G, they are also critical and they will remain at least for the foreseeable future.
Thank you very much. Of course, I will note that all the views expressed tonight during our webinar are speakers' personal observations and not views of any of their affiliated organizations or employers. You know, it's interesting, but ICT is actually a business. There's no doubt about that. And you have both entrepreneurs setting up their own organizations, or in fact, you have, you know, you can work for somebody else. So, yeah, so I really want to look at Engineer Chagwesha, because of course you have set up your own organization. You said for 5 years now you've been operating. Now Zimbabwe is one country that encourages youth to create employment. So what can you say about that? And do you think it is a really viable option in ICT to get into the ICT area as an entrepreneur compared to other forms or other fields? Engineer Chagwesha?
I can hear you.
Yeah, did you hear my question?
Oh, yes, I did.
Please go ahead.
Right, business and entrepreneurship, yes, they're very actually encouraged in Zimbabwe. Our government has been quite supportive. There are programs which are run by the porters, trying to get new entrepreneurs in and running the programs which try to get you investors if you need investors in your business. So the atmosphere is quite encouraging in Zimbabwe. So I would recommend anyone who is thinking of getting into entrepreneurship or business that this is the time to do so, as the nation is also poised to grow in the next few years. As I wouldn't say as opposed to getting employment is very critical, because as soon as you graduate, you realize that what you learned at your degree or at your college or at your certificate, what they taught you how to learn. Most of what your knowledge will consist of 10 years later are things that you learned on the job that may not be easily accessible within a textbook. So the employment part is very important. You graduate, get a job, something you're interested in. Then if you're interested in business, break out from there. Try to continue within the field of your expertise. Because at the end of the day, clients want someone who knows what they're doing. ICT is a very technical field. You can't be pretending. So that employment part gives you that. But then after that, break into business, it will get easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so definitely, but I suppose at the end of the day, engineer, hard work, understanding your career path, having the right qualifications. And I think what I'm getting from this, of course, is ICT is so diverse. I mean, I suppose in the old days, if I can remember, I'm not telling you my age, you would just go and fix computers, I suppose. Now, there's such a myriad of different professions that you can do in ICT as technology has basically outpaced civilization, that there's a lot, but do your research, understand your goals, understand where you are going. I think this is the general message that all the speakers are saying tonight. Thank you. Obey, are you there with us?
Yes, I am.
Obey, it's interesting because I want to get to a part of something which is important to talk about, and I suppose it's failure or regrets, because I assume most of us have that. So if I can ask you this, do you have any regrets? Do you regret getting into the ICT space? Do you regret making this your career? Do you believe that you should have done something else, as I'm sure your mum and dad asked you to when you were younger? What would you say to that?
Definitely not. If I were to choose again, I would still choose ICT. Yes, I've been fortunate enough to be at the forefront of some cutting edge technologies. I got employed by one of the leading ICT companies in Zimbabwe soon after graduation, that is Econet. And I've had a chance to work at the front in the technical spaces where I got my hands dirty. I also had a chance to work in project management, and been fortunate enough to work with different technologies and the likes. And right now I'm working in Sweden, which is one of the leading countries when it comes to innovation and technology. So this wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't. I believe if I was in another field, maybe the path would have been different. if I'm to mention any regrets, I think earlier in my career, I probably stayed, I became too loyal to some jobs and I stayed for too long because one thing that I would recommend if you enter ICT, the technology is ever changing. It's not advisable to be loyal to a job or even technology still. So it's important to be agile. You need to change with the technology. You need to be prepared to learn new stuff every day. The longer you stay on the same level of technology, the more redundant you become. So I think that's the only regret. I should have at least started by being agile from an earlier stage.
Thank you very much indeed, Obey. As I said, no regrets. To Tequila, I want to ask you about regrets in terms of the type of further study that you chose to take. Do you have any regrets or any, if I can say, wish list or bucket list that you should have done or could have done?
I graduated with the Masters in Information Systems, and I'm doing some certifications, and I've got some certifications already. I do not regret those, right? And because I think that they have helped me in progressing my career and also in understanding how ICT is and how you can implement it and how you can better yourself. However, I wish that I had done these things earlier. I wish that the moment that I was still at school, I would have taken time to learn soft skills, to learn that ICT is part of business. It's not isolated. It's not a field that just works independently and does not interact with anything else. I wish I had learned people skills at an earlier stage, you know, because there is need for me to be able to understand what my customer wants and also relate to them what it is that they need, right? And also how the technology will be able to help them. So when it comes to study, I haven't yet finished what I would want to study. I still want to learn, like what Obey just said, that you have to really be cognizant of cloud technology and also learn about it. Yes, I do have some knowledge on it, but I still want to learn more. I want to know more about the technologies that I haven't yet delved in, that I haven't yet experienced and that I haven't worked with. Because in any field that you are in, you really do not work with all the technology that is there in the ICT sector. So definitely no regrets in what I studied, but I really do want to study further. And
you want to keep studying going forward. Right, unfortunately, we are having to wrap up. As I said, we are suffering power problems, but I do want to get to some of the questions if I can. And I'm going to ask my guests to basically jump in if you can answer them and just really be brief, as brief as possible. I can't answer all the questions. However, as I said, ZimNOG and ISOC will get back to you with your answers. They will put your questions to our guests, and I'm sure they'll be able to get back to you with your answers. Let me just pick a couple here. And please, my guests, if one of you could jump in. The first question I want to ask is, as I said, please be brief. How does one compensate for a lack of experience in a business setting?
I would like to jump in there. Experience is exactly that, experience. So when you are looking for a job and you do not have experience in anything that in the job that will have been advertised, what you need to do is to learn, right? To show that you are willing to learn, to show that in somehow, some way you have kind of implemented what you are learning. For example, people that are learning, maybe let's say they're doing data science or statistics and so on. What you need to show is, I have tried in some way to implement what I have learned somehow by maybe saying, I took data from this platform and I managed to get these analytics reports from it. So you need to show that you're willing to learn and to implement what you have learned from university.
I have to jump in there, unfortunately, because I can only give you literally 30 seconds to answer this question because we are running out of time. I do apologize, but thank you for that. I'm going to ask two questions in one here, and I'd like one of my guests to jump in. The first one is, what's the best way to study towards a career path in network engineering? And is programming an essential skill if someone wants to major in networking? Who can answer that?
Hello, hi, Andy.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I actually responded to that question. I actually sent some message to the person who asked them.
Okay.
Yeah, but basically what you need to do is in network engineering, there are a lot of certifications. I think some of them have been mentioned before. So there is a career path where you can actually take up certifications. But a degree or a diploma would certainly give you an edge. But most of the certifications, I think, will be a very good start to actually take when you want to go into network engineering.
All right. Thank you. Now I see that someone has their hand up for a question, I believe, for Engineer Nyagura, if I'm not mistaken. Please, that with your hand up, I'm not sure the name. No, it's Nyagura, apologies. It's actually Nyagura has his hand up, her hand up. Please, will you go ahead and briefly ask your question?
Yes. No, I actually raised the hand when you were talking about.
It was you. I was, yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't got the machine in front of me, so I do apologize. Let me move on to some of the another question. What are the required entry-level certifications for a position in network administration and system administration? I wonder if I think that's probably been answered. Oh, there goes my power. Well, as I said, you have to see that I'm using a light. This is Harare. So as I said, we're going to have to probably bring it to a close tonight. But before I do, I'm not sure if we actually have the winners of the quiz ready for me, because obviously, as I said, all your questions that you posted will be answered by ISOC and of course by ZimNOG. And as you can see, we're working in darkness. But in Zimbabwe, everything is possible, and we must continue going forward. Nothing must stop us. That is the key. Right. So do we have any customers? Do we have winners of our quiz? Do we have anyone, or do we get hold of them afterwards?
Let me randomize and then announce the winner.
Okay. All right. Well, while we compile the winner of the quiz, I'd like to call on Jasper Mangwana. I don't know if Jasper, do you have it?
Yes.
Oh, here we go. Please go ahead.
Happiness Rutendo. Someone with the email address that goes by happinessrutendo@gmail.com.
Happinessrutendo@gmail.com. You've won a prize. I'm not sure what the prize is, but I'm sure it's something ICT juicy or ICT related. So congratulations, you're the winner of the prize. You obviously answered all the quiz questions correctly. So again, happiness, congratulations. Your prize will be coming and your Gmail address is there. So now then, unfortunately, we have to come to the end of this very important and exciting webinar that we've held. And I think I personally, who are not in the ICT field, have learned a lot from it. And I hope that all of you participants have also learned from our distinguished guests and guests with proven track records in the ICT field. And also guests who, as much as they are in the ICT fields, they have all one thing in common. They never stop learning and never stop learning about new technologies and what's happening. They keep abreast of what's happening. They have clear career plans. They understand what they want to do in the ICT arena. And I believe that's something that all of you should do. So we come to the end, as I said, of our webinar this evening. I'd like to call upon Jasper Mangwana. He's from ISOC, just to give us a brief closing remarks. Jasper, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Andy.
Please go ahead.
I'm also on the other side, you know, we are in Harare, but things have to keep on going. We want to appreciate ZimNOG for this very informative, engagement conversation in terms of career path. There are a lot of things that are developing. We know in terms of telecommunications planning, you now need to have some civil engineering background. If you can then add that on top of your telecommunications, also have issues to do with cybersecurity. You can do law, you can also do ICT. You become a better person in that aspect. We also have to talk about greening the internet. You've been maybe an electrical engineer. There are also a lot of options in that aspect. But what I think we need to do as young people and also all those that are in the technical aspect is also bring these solutions home to ensure that we can develop our nation, we can develop our people, provide solutions that are sustainable for us. Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you so much to Nomsa and the team at ZimNOG. We greatly appreciate this collaboration with the Internet Society.
Jasper Mangwana, of course, with the Internet Society, Zimbabwe chapter, ISOC, and of course the thanks go to ZimNOG as well. As Nomsa said, they've been taking a while to set this up, but here we are at a very successful, I believe, webinar tonight. Well, that's it from us this evening. I'd just like to thank our guests tonight. Thank you very much for your invaluable contributions. And I hope that through this webinar, you have crystallized things for our participants. You've shown them a way to go. And I believe, I'm sure I speak on behalf of ZimNOG, this will probably be the first of many engagements with ICT career professionals or ICT learners on the way forward, really to give you help and guidance and to steer you down the right path. Of course, all of our guests, we will be in touch with you to give you a token of appreciation, but I would like to express my appreciation to you all right now. You have been participating in our virtual webinar tonight, Career Path for ICT Professionals Webinar 2021. This webinar was brought to you by Zimbabwe Network Operators Group, ZimNOG, in partnership with the Internet Society Zimbabwe chapter. Well, that's it from me. I'm Andy Hodges, Head of Business at Zimpapers TV Network, ZTN. Have a good night, goodbye, and please, you all be safe.
Okay, thank you.